Behind me are more than 11,700 living cells of dead animals, and some of them might come back. They're not preserved bodies, they're not fossils, they're something far stranger. Living cells frozen at minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to stop time itself.
There really is nowhere else in the world where you would find more than 25 animals frozen in one box.
Let me take you inside the world's strangest and coldest zoo, and the proof it holds that extinction doesn't have to be permanent. In 2020, a small ferret kit was born at a conservation facility in Colorado. Eyes still closed, completely unremarkable, except for one thing. Her mother had been dead for over 30 years. Her name was Elizabeth Ann, and she was a clone born from cells that had been sitting frozen in liquid nitrogen since the late 1980s. Cells from an animal named Willa, who died before most people watching this were born. That had never happened before in the history of life on Earth, and it only happened because one eccentric scientist who, in 1975, started doing something that made almost no sense to anyone around him. His name was Kurt Benirschke, a pathologist at the San Diego Zoo who studied placentas, the biology of how mammals develop before birth. Not exactly the resume of someone about to change conservation forever, but Benirschke kept noticing something that bothered him. Animals were dying at the zoo, not from neglect, but from the quiet, slow collapse that happens when a species' genetic diversity runs out. Inbreeding, stillbirths, immune systems that couldn't fight off basic infections. He was watching extinction happen in slow motion, one generation at a time. And he had no tools to stop it. Nobody did. So he started doing something strange. Every time a rare animal died at the zoo, he'd take a small tissue sample, a piece of skin, a fragment of organ, and he'd freeze it. Not in a normal freezer, in liquid nitrogen, minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to suspend all biological activity indefinitely. Here's what made people skeptical. There was no use for it. Cloning didn't exist, stem cells weren't a field, genetic rescue was barely even a concept. He was saving something people had no idea how to use. When asked why, he said he believed that one day the science would catch up. That someone someday would figure out what to do with these cells. So he just kept freezing, one sample at a time, year after year, building a library written in a language no one could read yet. Dr. Marlis Hauk is the curator of the Frozen Zoo and worked with Benirschke early in his career. She said even in the early days, he had a sense of just how valuable this collection could become, even if it wasn't apparent at the time.
It's kind of been the story of the Frozen Zoo throughout history. Bank it now and wait for technology to catch up.
Yes, I mean, he was always using it then, but also definitely thinking into the future. In fact, I found a newspaper article from 1975, because I used to say, oh, he couldn't have imagined cloning. But in this newspaper article, he said one day these cells could be used for things including cloning. We just had no idea.
It took one individual's foresight to lead to the Frozen Zoo, but since then it's taken a team of scientists and conservationists years to figure out how to put it to work saving species. And I think that matters because conservation victories usually don't come from one heroic person swooping in. They happen when enough people decide to back the work consistently. And that's why the partner of today's video, Planet Wild, feels so relevant here. Planet Wild is a community-funded nature protection organization. Every month, their 20,000 plus members, including myself, pool their contributions to fund a new, carefully selected conservation mission, restoring forests, protecting oceans, bringing back endangered species. Think of it as crowdfunding for the natural world. What I genuinely appreciate about them, and why I'm a member myself and said yes to this partnership, is that they show you the work. Your contributions don't just disappear, they're put to work, and you get to be a part of the process. Every mission gets documented on their YouTube channel. For someone who makes videos about conservation, that transparency matters. For example, in one of their recent missions, they helped build animal highways in Canada so wildlife can safely cross roads and dangerous collisions are prevented. If the story you just heard is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night, in the good way, Planet Wild is worth your time. A membership starts from a few bucks a month and it directly funds a new mission every single month. And the first 100 people to sign up using my code PARK4 will get their first month paid for by us. Just scan this QR code or click the link in the description. After that, you can cancel anytime. And if you want to see them in action, check out their wildlife crossing mission video linked below. I think you'll be hooked. Okay, now back to the story. So let's talk about that clone, Elizabeth Ann, because the story of her species shows just how valuable the frozen zoo became when science caught up. By the early 1970s, scientists believed black-footed ferrets were completely extinct. Gone. Every single one. Then in 1981, a ranch dog dropped something strange on its owner's porch in Wyoming. A ferret. Alive. That discovery led researchers to a tiny wild population, the last black-footed ferrets left on the planet. They captured them to start a breeding program, and the total number they had to work with was only 18.
Only 18. You could barely call it a species anymore. It was more of a genetic bottleneck with fur.
Every black-footed ferret alive today descends from those same 18 individuals. With every generation, the genetic diversity narrowed further. The same inherited weaknesses kept concentrating. The species was surviving, but it was stuck in a slow spiral. Then scientists turned to the frozen zoo. Willa's cells had been collected before the bottleneck reached its worst point. Her DNA carried genetic variations that no longer existed in any living ferret, variations lost to decades of inbreeding. Using those frozen cells, they created Elizabeth Ann. The first time genetic material from a dead animal was used to inject new diversity back into a living, endangered population. Not resurrection exactly, but something close. A way of reaching back across 30 years of death and pulling lost genetics into the present. And Elizabeth Ann was just the beginning, because the frozen zoo doesn't hold cells from just one species, it holds samples from over 1,300. And some of those stories are even harder to believe. Take the Lord Howe Island stick insect, sometimes called a tree lobster, native to a small volcanic island between Australia and New Zealand. When a supply ship ran aground there in 1918, black rats escaped onto the island. Within 2 years, the stick insects were gone, declared extinct by 1920. And for 80 years, that was the end of the story. Then, in 2001, a team of climbers scaled Ball's Pyramid, a jagged volcanic spire rising straight out of the ocean about 13 miles away. It's essentially a giant rock needle in the middle of the Pacific. Almost no vegetation, barely qualifies as land.
Under a single bush, clinging to life on this impossible rock, they found 24 Lord Howe Island stick insects.
The entire surviving populations of a species the world had written off 8 decades earlier. Their genetic material is now in the frozen zoo, a safety net for a species that shouldn't exist. Or consider the northern white rhinoceros. 2 individuals remain on Earth, both female, both too old to reproduce naturally, by every conventional measure, functionally extinct. But the frozen zoo holds cells from 12 northern white rhinos, including males, including genetic diversity that no longer exists in any living animal. Those cells are the only thread connecting this species to a possible future. And this is where something genuinely unprecedented is happening. In a lab in San Diego, researchers working with the Frozen Zoo's collection recently took frozen skin cells from a dead animal and reprogrammed them into pluripotent stem cells, cells capable of becoming any type of tissue, including eggs, including sperm. Think about what that means. If you can turn a frozen skin cell from a dead animal into a viable egg or sperm cell, you don't need living breeding pairs anymore. You don't even need living individuals of that species. You need a freezer and time. Researchers are already attempting this with the northern white rhino. Their goal, use frozen cells from dead rhinos to create embryos, implant them in closely related southern white rhino surrogates, and bring genetic diversity back into a population that currently consists of 2 aging females. It hasn't worked yet. The science is still early, still uncertain, but the cells are there, waiting, just as Benirschke always said they would be.
I guess we have days where we feel a lot of pressure because there's so few of us who do it, and we don't know when animals are going to die and need to be banked, but we realize that if we can bank it, if we don't get the cells in here, that really limits the future for the species, because right now the cells can be used in different ways for genetic rescue or to bring species back from the brink of extinction through either cloning or when you can reprogram these cells into stem cells. But when they're banked, the potential is kind of limitless.
And every year the Frozen Zoo adds more. Tasmanian devil cells to protect against a cancer that's devastating wild populations. Coral fragments from bleaching reefs.
Sunflower sea star tissue from a species that collapsed almost overnight along the Pacific coast. Every sample is a bet on a future we can't fully predict, preserved at a temperature where time doesn't pass, waiting for knowledge we haven't developed yet. We tend to think of conservation as saving what's alive right now, protecting habitats, passing laws, creating breeding programs. And all of that matters. But the frozen zoo represents something different. It's conservation for a future we can't see yet. A bet that what's impossible today won't be impossible forever.
When you don't quite know how to save something yet, the most important thing you can do is make sure it still exists by the time you figure it out. All right, I have one more bittersweet story to end this film on. The Frozen Zoo is part of San Diego Zoo's Safari Park, a genuinely impressive facility that conserves rare species and plants from all over the world. One of their most noteworthy exhibits are platypuses, poisonous nocturnal duck-billed mammals native to Australia. They're so rare that the Safari Park is the only zoo outside of Australia to have them on exhibit. After we filmed in the Frozen Zoo, we spent some time with the zoo's pair, Birrung the male and Eve the female. Though the enclosures kept completely dark during visiting hours to allow visitors a glimpse of them at their most active, we did get to see them zooming around their habitat. They're smaller and quicker than you'd imagine, and it was a genuinely special experience. When we started editing this film, we learned that Eve, the female we met, had died. She lived to 21, beyond the typical outer limit lifespan of 20 that these creatures can reach, so she had a wonderful and long life. But still, it was very sad to see. I reached out to the team at Safari Park and asked the question, were her cells preserved in the frozen zoo? Because of the sheer variety of animals on the ground and because of the proximity to the Safari Park, often living cells are able to be collected shortly after an animal's death and preserved in the frozen zoo's collection. They responded back, Eve's cells were collected shortly after she passed, and a part of her continues to live on, frozen at 320 degrees below zero, until she's called on again. And finally, don't forget to check out Planet Wild and start supporting wildlife missions around the world. The first 100 people to sign up using the code PARK4 will get their first month on us. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.